All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the goings on in the past said week in the world of pop culture, whether we're talking about local news, film and TV news, tech news, sports news, and the like. We try to bring you up to speed so that way you are not left in the wind. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And as always, every single week, I'm not going to be alone in talking about the said topics for this past said week. So without further ado, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir? I think you're muted.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen?
Looking through the
We're back
peephole.
again. I don't know how we've got this. I've got
Right?
like a '90s frog eyed lens. We're gonna work
Right.
on that once this gets off the screen. But I'm
Hey,
still
live
here with you,
show.
ladies and gentlemen. That's right.
All right, excellent, excellent, excellent. But there we go, there we go.
Yes, ladies and
But
gentlemen. There's a different setting on here. I can get an update on the Apple. They had the ultra wide, just a whoop. I'm getting my Spike Lee on, ladies and gentlemen. That's how we do it here at Movers
indeed,
Shakers
indeed,
Unlimited.
indeed. So Spills, quite a bit has happened this week, and apologies to those of you that were expecting a show last week. There was every intention of doing so. Of course, last week, I was on site at San Diego Comic Con, and wanted to be able to share some of the things that went down. You probably have seen it, in our in some of the content that has been released thus far of some of the things that were seen while there. So expect more to be on the way. However, I will jump into some of those things because it does relate to our main topic that we will be discussing towards the end of the show, which you can see, in the background, that being a cast announcement that we have for the upcoming X-Men reboot that's going to take place, of course, within the MCU. So stick around for that. But Spills, of course, we had a few other things that went down as well. One of which being regarding your the number two best player of all
I was
time.
going to say, my
Um,
GOAT, ladies and gentlemen. Are we talking about the greatest player of all times?
regarding some,
You're lucky because I was going to talk about how disappointed you are that LeBron didn't sign with those geezers up there in Oakland. Well, San Francisco now, but all of y'all, he didn't sign with y'all because that would be foolish. But
right, right, right,
ladies
right,
and
right.
gentlemen,
Right, indeed. But yeah, we're going to talk about some of the logistical things regarding the number two best player of all time. I just do that just to get at Spills, but well, among the greatest, undeniably. Some of his logistical matters that he'll have now being with the 76ers. If you weren't aware of him announcing that, I guess at this point it has been about a week and a half. It was not this Friday that just passed, but the Friday prior to that, that we had the announcement that LeBron would indeed be joining the 76ers. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that, of how that's going to apparently work in terms of his abode, if you will, where he would be residing once he is in those couple of years contract wise that he is planning to play with the 76ers. Additionally, we do have a couple of trailers to talk about as well. One being a part of a well-known franchise, and I feel like we'll talk about this more. Spills, I feel like it's getting a little long in the tooth. I did enjoy it towards the beginning, but I feel like now it's kind of running its course. But who knows? Maybe with this next installment, they can surprise me. But also with a film that is getting yet another reboot, a film that originally dropped in the 60s, if memory serves, ended up getting a reboot right before the beginning of the millennium back in 1999, and now receiving yet another reboot with a recent Oscar winner in the starring chair as the headliner for that said film. So without further ado, Spills, shall we dive in?
let's get it, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, excellent, excellent, excellent. So give us one moment here. Um, as I said, we are doing the show live. So, things happen as we're getting into doing live shows. But once this live show is done, efforts will be made, of course, to timestamp the stories accordingly. So that way you are able to, skip forwards and backwards to your heart's content for those said stories. So just be on the lookout for that. But with that, if you give me one moment, I'm going to see if I can get up our story here. Like I said, the wonders of doing, a live show. Sometimes things like to work out for you, and sometimes things don't like to, work for you. So give me one moment here. But while we're doing that, let me actually just bring it up, and I'll pass it over to you, Spills, once we get it up here. But this was regarding, as I said, LeBron James, his living arrangement playing for the 76ers. It was revealed this past Monday, and this was I'll give a shout out to Brian Windhorst from ESPN. He had shared that LeBron James would, in fact, be living in New York, despite the fact that he will be playing for the Philadelphia, 76ers. Typically when we're talking about players that are moving to a said team, it would make the most sense, and it's normally a given that they would be staying in that said city, or at least one of the neighboring places that are closely, closely in proximity to that said city. But not Mr. James. Mr. James apparently will be residing in New York, and to take, this part of it isn't confirmed, mind you, but there have been discussions that by being in New York, he likely will be utilizing helicopter, apparently, to travel back and forth between New York and Philadelphia. As I said, that part is still being, confirmed and speculated at this point, but at least the part about him likely being in New York seems to be the case. So, Skills, I'll punt it over to you. I'll punt it over to you as the fanboy of LeBron James. What are your thoughts on him not residing in Philadelphia and actually residing in a neighboring city that is, I mean, it's not super far, but it ain't exactly close.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I'm the only one on this podcast that tells the truth about basketball people.
Wow.
So I'm gonna tell the truth here. LeBron
Wow.
needs to get a private train car. If you are from the Northeast like we are, you know that the Acela train be zip zop zipping all over the place, and you can get a train car. It's nothing more baller and make you seem like a movie villain, like the way that we are describing LeBron James. We say that he's a villain because he's always winning and he's always going to new teams to
Always winning.
control
I like it.
control the NBA. This is going into his 20. This contract will put him into the 25th year of him being an NBA player at the top levels. That's 10 more years than Michael Jordan was good. So I don't know if somebody was good for 10 more years than me. I would say they was better than me. But that's my own personal ideas. I think that the helicopter scares me, honestly, ladies and gentlemen. As a Lakers fan, we all know that helicopters have a sword pass with former Lakers. Um, that kind of travel obviously would not be that far in a helicopter from um, Philly to New York. I wonder where in New York he'll be staying. Maybe Tribeca, maybe the Upper East Side. Where do you think that where in New York would LeBron live? Maybe the Millionaire Mile.
I mean, that
Um,
would that would make the most sense. I guess for me, I think another thing that we need to talk about, Spills, which I mean I feel kind of plays into the GOAT conversation, is ducking fans. And let me explain what I mean. If we're talking about Philadelphia, people who know our fans of Philadelphia, they can get kind of crazy. They can get a little passionate. And if things are not going the way that they expect it to go with their said teams, you know they can get downright petty. They can get downright, from what I understand and what I've observed, and the reputation that has
Hmm.
been the case a lot of times with Philly fans with their sports teams. They have a reputation of being extremely passionate, and while they will ride and die for you in terms of the success that you might bring to their sports teams, if you don't bring that much success to your team, they will let you hear it. So I don't know. I think this move with LeBron, or this decision by LeBron, um, to not stay exactly in Philly and instead stay in a neighboring city, kind of plays into something we see a lot from LeBron. Kind of like what you were saying about him, winning all the time, which is trying to control the narrative, so that way, if things don't play out the way that it's anticipated it'll play out, there's an immediate out, and there's an immediate distancing, if you will, from your team versus kind of being in it with your team. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't imagine that LeBron was going to move to the city center anyway. Um, living an hour and a half away and chartering helicopters is a very baller thing to do. I think that
It is. It just seems unnecessary. Like, just
it
stay in
does, but it
Philadelphia.
doesn't. It does, but it doesn't. I don't
Just
think
stay in
that LeBron wants to
Philadelphia.
live in. I don't think LeBron wants to live in Philadelphia. He's talked about how much he does not like
Then
Memphis,
don't play on the
Tennessee.
team. Then don't play on
The
the
team
team.
is too good. We're talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
Can't
This
have your
is
cake and eat
I'm
it
gonna give
too.
you
Don't
some.
play on the
I was
team.
going to say, you see, this is cake and eating it too, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon writes the topics, ladies and gentlemen. He didn't talk about, is this the best team in the NBA now? He didn't talk about, are they champions, a shoe-in champion? How's the basketball going to
They're
work? He
not.
not talking
I
about that. He's
promise you,
talking
they're
about
not. I promise you,
where
they're not.
you don't think that they're the best team in
No,
basketball?
and I'll explain to you why. Look,
Okay,
I'll
I
give
want to hear this.
I'll give props where props are due. Right, Philadelphia is an incredibly talented team. They have a lot of young talent on that team. You have Maxi, you have VJ Edgecombe. Now you have Jalen Brown. Incredible trio. And then now add to that, I mean, you put in LeBron with that squad. You already have Embiid with that squad. But here's the thing: Embiid has demonstrated time and time again that he has trouble being durable. So again, I feel like there's an asterisk in terms of considering Embiid being a part of what they're trying to do in Philly. LeBron, as great as he is, and again, like I said, number two all time. Um, he he's not a youngster anymore either, and he's still Father Time is undefeated, and as great as and consistent as he has been, don't get me wrong, he hasn't, the last couple of years, has not been absolutely, durable. Mind you, I will say this before you, jump on it, because I know you about to hop on it. Well, he's played X number of games. He has, undoubtedly, but if memory serves, I think he fell shy this year of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, he fell shy of the minimum number of games that you need to play in order to be all NBA, which I believe is what, in the 60s. I mean, if you
It's
want
like
to,
65, I think, is
yeah, yeah,
the
and what they play 83 games,
82 games. 82
82
games.
games. So, uh, when we're talking about that, and you know, mad props that he is able to play at the level that he has and had the level of consistency that he has. Um, but I don't see it, really exceeding what we've already seen thus far. In fact, it may actually decrease slightly more than what we've seen before. So now that you're adding Embiid, who is a question mark, you now have LeBron. who was a wild card. We don't really we know what we're going to get, but anything can happen considering the number of the years of mileage that he has on his body of playing as long as he has. That still places things in a place that is not guaranteed, in my opinion, even when you add Jaylen Brown, even when you add Maxey, and even when you add VJ. And then add to that, which I feel like is not being talked about enough. A lot of times when we're talking about those championship teams, you have players that complement each other. And when we're talking about the players that I just named that would ideally be a part of that starting five, they are black holes. And when I say black holes, they need to have the ball. This is not, Maxey needs to have the ball. Jaylen Brown needs to have the ball. VJ, I will give you, can play off the ball, but he's getting to the point where his game is escalating to a point where he's going to need to be, he's going to need to be able to continue to make a step forward. And by having the teammates that he has, I feel like it's going to actually hamper him because he needs to be able to continue to continue on the trajectory that it looks like he's heading on currently. So yeah, I don't know. When we're talking about all of those players, Jaylen Brown, who would need to have the ball, Maxey, who would need to run the offense and need to have the ball in his hand, VJ being held back from his continued trajectory, and then your two players with James potentially playing even fewer games than that he's played before. Even though it is, quite a deal more than some other players that we see that do a lot of load management, still not, at the level that it would need to be at that level of an all NBA, player. And then add to Embiid's continued, fragility and lack of reliability long term over the course of the season, and then even going to the postseason, it places it in a really weird spot. I would have liked to see, however way, I joke about LeBron, I feel like it would have been a far better fit for him to go to Cleveland. And I know a lot of folks would say, James Harden is on that team. And I agree with you. James Harden at one point was on that team. And from what I understand, he would have attempted to stay on that team had he known that LeBron was going to come to that team. Because from what I understand, he's, looking elsewhere, but he would have made an attempt to stay if James, had in fact gone there. But you have size on that team. You have other scorers on that team. But again, when you're talking about those pieces, they all complement one another. It's not a situation where you have players where they need to have the ball, they're a black hole in the offense, and once they have the ball, everyone else is, just looking around frozen until they get the ball. So, I mean, that's how I feel. Maybe you feel differently.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like I'm about to do my. You just don't know basketball. You don't know basketball. To me, I feel like
preach, sir.
the
Preach,
better,
sir. Go ahead.
the better place for him to go. He was always going to go to Philly, ladies and gentlemen. I said it on this here podcast. I said Philly's the place I would go. They got Jaylen Brown, who is a Finals MVP. He shows up in big games. He's always ready to go. He's got two young and upcoming guards who play hard-nosed defense. They are now the best defensive team in basketball to me. Even with Wembanyama being in the league, I just feel like 1 to 5 they can guard anyone. They also have a Wembanyama stopper in Joel Embiid.
If he's available.
This is the only problem that I can see for this team is the same problem that the 03-04 Lakers ran into, where the personalities don't work well together, and
that too. I didn't even talk about that. That too.
Possibly a major injury to LeBron or Joel Embiid, namely LeBron. I think that they could win without Joel. It will be difficult for them, but I don't see how that could be a problem. I don't see anybody that's better than them. they will have the young boys to carry them through the regular season, and then LeBron can turn it on in the playoffs. Like I know that we don't say you could just turn it on and turn it off, but LeBron has shown he can. The people on the internet are saying this is going to be his Magic Johnson season. He's going to be peak Magic Johnson. Um, the hops are there. I think he can jump higher than Magic could at any point in his career today. Um, the durability, I don't worry about the durability with LeBron. I feel like he could have qualified for those end of year awards last year, but decided not to. We saw what he did in the playoffs. So to me, I think that this is a shoe-in. I think that LeBron and the Sixers are someone to be reckoned with. I think, in the immortal words of Moses Malone, they're going to go fo, 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 fo. So I think they're going to sweep through the playoffs. I don't see anyone that can give them a problem. Unless, of course, LeBron doesn't make his teammates happy. But I don't see that that's going to happen. He doesn't seem to have, the Jaylen Brown is the only one that I would worry about personality wise, and it seems like Jalen's going to be taking the reins. I think that Jalen's going to be getting all the shots, so I don't see where Jalen will be upset. I think LeBron has shown he could defer. He deferred to the number 3 position behind Austin Reeves and Luca last year, and they still won about 50 games. So I don't see how a better team, which the Sixers are than the Lakers were last year, won't do better. So
Yeah, but I would say I feel like while he did do it, I will agree with you. He did it. I feel like he did so begrudgingly. I don't feel like it was a situation where he was placed in the role that he would like to be. Even if he is not scoring every single basket, he still wants to be, pivotal to the offense, even if it means playing him kind of like, the Warriors play Draymond Green with him being a point forward. So if he's kind of being played off the ball and not really, extensively or actively being included in the plays that are being ran, I still feel like he's going to feel some type of way. And when you have that level of talent with, like I said, with VJ, with Maxi, and with Brown, it'll be interesting. I'm kind of skeptical on how those, like you said, those personalities are going to mesh, but also in terms of what they bring to a team, in terms of their skill set, how they're going to mesh together. You were mentioning about a team that they reminded you of. For me, they remind me of that Lakers team that that got all the way, that lost to to the Detroit Pistons.
yeah, the 03-04 Lakers.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like it, just what you have with Karl Malone, all of those folks, where you have a lot of players that were in their heyday a couple of years back, and then now getting into joining this team and trying to ring chase, so to speak. Because we also have, and we didn't really talk about it, but we have from the championship Celtics team, we have a reunion of sorts happening with Brown and with brain farting, our point guard, who was with
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday. Apparently is going to be making it, is going to be with the 76ers as well. So, I mean, they're going to have some depth, but it'll be interesting to see how it's all going to mesh, for sure.
To me, that sounds like even more of a problem. They have more defense. Adding Drew Holiday, I think that the Milwaukee losing Drew Holiday is part of the reason why Giannis is playing in Miami today. I think
I agree with that, for sure.
There's certain players that teams get rid of, not knowing how important they are to their championship muster. And I think
Caruso with your Lakers.
Well, him,
I don't know.
a couple of the big men, we lost all the centers that we had after that. So, we could talk about both he and Caruso and Dwight and all those boys that we lost, JaVale McGee. That was sad. But, Obviously, we traded, but this is not about the Lakers, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about the Sixers now. The Lakers are a great franchise, and I love them, but we are not talking about them. So that's right. I think that LeBron, like I said here, to get back to the topic, I think he should just get an Acela train car. Um, that would be cool to me. I think that a private train car on the Acela, I think the Acela is like 25, 30 minutes from Penn Station to Union Station or Penn Station to whatever. I don't know what the train is in Philadelphia, but I think that, they did it on
That sounds
Traded
right.
Places. They did it on Traded Places where they took the train
Movie
and was
reference.
there very
Okay.
fast. Obviously, I
Okay.
don't think LeBron is going to have on a monkey costume or anything like that. But I'm interested to see what they do with um, with his travel. I think that he's doing a lot. I think that he's really changing his system.
Mm.
Obviously, he's been with his wife for the last 25 years. I imagine that she's been with him all the time. I'm interested to see how that will affect his his abilities to acclimate. But the last time he was away from her, they won a chip. So I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see indeed. But what about you guys out there? How do you guys feel about it? You can let us know in the comments. And this is again regarding, I know we were talking initially about LeBron James's arrangements in terms of playing with the 76ers, which is, like I said, insane to me that you're not, living in the city, where you are, playing with that said team because you want to be able to have that camaraderie with your team and with that city. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how that's all going to work. Like I said, conspiracy theorists, yeah, me hitting it, being the conspiracy theorist, I would say it's along the lines of trying to um, avoid the animosity that can come with the 76ers in the event that things don't play out the way that he anticipates or hopes that it will with that team. But time will tell. And we will see if Mr. Spills turns out to be right or if I turn out to be right in terms of how their season goes. Because trust me, we will talk about it for sure, week after week, once the season starts. But with that, we're going to move on to some talk of some.
Before
Uh,
we move on, before we move
yes.
on, I need to get this on tape before the season starts. If
Okay.
LeBron wins a chip with the fourth team he's played with, bringing four championships to four different franchises, would that change his goat argument to you?
No, it would just bring him closer to Jordan, but no, it wouldn't. Because again, you can't erase those championships that he lost. You'll still be number two to me.
He didn't win no chips with the Wizards. He lost championships for the Wizards. He lost lots of championships for the Bulls.
Let it go,
We don't
bro.
talk about that.
Let it
I'm just
go.
saying. I'm just saying. I just wanted to hear if you could say that. I wanted to see
Nope.
hear
Nope.
what
And
was the
you
truth.
heard it here. Nope.
Oh, okay, that's just ridiculous.
And again, nothing wrong with being number two all time. Considering the years and years upon years that basketball as a sport has existed, and considering all the outstanding players that and legendary players that we have had in NBA history, it is not a slight to call LeBron number two. So, with that, I'm gonna get into our next topic. As I said, there were some trailers to be able to dive into. So, if you give me one moment, I will bring those said trailers up for you. Um, as I said, one dealt with an installment that we have for uh, a major franchise, and the other deals with a reboot that we have for a said film. So let me see if I can get this up for you guys now. But starting first, on Tuesday, Sony provided a peek at the new installment in its Jumanji franchise with Jumanji Open World, which sees archetypal characters of the fictional game within the world of the film. break out into the new world, stuck in demo mode. Bringing its all-star cast that includes the likes of Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black, just to name a few, the film is scheduled to arrive in theaters on Christmas Day. Now, getting into our other film, the other film that we had drop, if you give me one moment here, this also came on Wednesday. So a day later, making, and this would mark, let's see, the first film following his Oscar win, Amazon MGM unveiled a teaser trailer for its Michael B. Jordan caper, The Thomas Crown Affair, following its 1968 original, as well as the 1999 remake. The film once again follows a bored rich man who steals a priceless piece of art just for the thrill, starting a smart cat and mouse game with an investigator. This film is set to release in theaters in the spring on March 5th. So Spills, your thoughts on the next installment that we have of the Jumanji franchise, as well as the new caper, the new rebooted caper, if you will, for the Thomas Crown Affair.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, who knew Jumanji would turn into a trilogy in the 90s when we were watching the one-off movie with Robert Williams? I'm interested to see what they do with this. Obviously, with open world, I imagine they're trying to, as in the world, in the words of that funny SNL skit, Jumanji come out. It sounds like Jumanji's going to come out into the world rather than the Jumanji of the the 2020s where you go into Jumanji. And obviously we know we're going to argue about this. You're going to, in the comments, people are going to say, well, actually, Robert Williams did go into Jumanji. He was stuck on his turn and then they brought him out. Sure, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm interested to see this new Jumanji. I think it's a fun family affair. I think that we all will enjoy it.
Well, I imagine you probably will see it more than me, you know, with it being, I guess, quote unquote, a more of a kind of a family film. But I don't know,
Oh
maybe
yes,
you
it's
feel like
definitely more
your
family
son
friendly, I
is.
think.
I'm about to say maybe you think your son might be too much, you know, too mature, you know, for your son at this point, where age wise.
I think that he's okay. I think that this is a good age for him to start getting into the mange of it
Okay.
all. I'm just interested to see what they do. Obviously, the third movie in a trilogy of movies that you didn't know was going to be a trilogy is always kind of rough. So it it seems like they have too many things going on with the actual with I feel like they've gotten all the jokes and plot lines out of this Jumanji. So
Yeah,
I
I
worry
agree.
about that.
I agree.
How do you feel about the new Jumanji open world?
So I'll agree with you in that regard. In that, um, when we first had the creation of this series of films within the overall franchise, um, it had, you know, an interesting premise. I liked how they kind of modernized it and brought it up to date with having it as a video game. Um, I just feel like, kind of similar to what you said, that they've been able to milk a lot of the situational things that you could do with the setup that they've established thus far, with this world, with this franchise. And based off of what I saw, you know, with this current trailer, a lot of times with a lot of the other films, there were quite a few, you know, laugh out loud moments, and even moments that I can even remember watching the film where, you know, it was quite funny. But I feel like as they've gone along, like the second one, you know, it I don't feel like it held up to the, you know, the first in these series of films that we had with this cast. Um, and whenever you're doing any installment, it's always tricky to continue the momentum of what you had, you know, before, and it becomes even trickier a lot of times when you have instances where you have films that become, I don't want to say surprisingly successful, because you had a lot of the pieces there that would, that you would assume would make the film successful, with Kevin Hart, having, a lot of having projects that, made money, prior to doing Jumanji. And so, he was coming off the momentum of that. And then, of course, The Rock was at a different point of his career, too, where he was doing a lot of blockbusters that were making, he was having, multi-$100 million, $billion franchises. I mean, you can arguably say now that's not necessarily the case, where he's not really on that same kind of not trajectory, but that same kind of momentum. It feels like now he's trying to get back to that point, because there have been a couple of films recently that have not sustained, that success that he was seeing before. So with all of that baggage, with what you have, where some of the actors are in a unique part of their careers where maybe a lot of they're not opening films as high as they used to anymore, that I feel like puts a added strain, with this film, with some of those actors too. Particularly with The Rock, as awesome as The Rock is, I feel like he has become oversaturated within the films. You may disagree with me, Spills, but I feel like there are a couple of actors out there where, as great as they are, as performers, sometimes it does pay to kind of, take a step back and to space out, that exposure that you have across various films, because sometimes I feel like an audience members can get tired of you, where they're like, man, you're in this film this weekend, then you're in another film this weekend, and then you have another film coming out the weekend after that. Sometimes it's helpful to be able to take a break, to give, folks a breather, to allow them to appreciate the film that you've done, and to have a break from you, so that way they appreciate it when they see you again. But when you're like in seemingly almost every single film that's out there, I feel like there can be a tendency, with audiences, to kind of grow weary of you, or grow tired of you, no matter, how great of an actor you are, actress that you are. I feel like that could be the case. Or I feel like we're also seeing that with, and then I think he's a terrific actor, is Pedro Pascal. Like, Pedro Pascal is like in everything. He's in, The Last of Us. He's in The Mandalorian. He's now in, Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four movie. So, I mean, he's in a lot of stuff. And I feel like, he's an excellent actor. He's a terrific actor. I think Pedro Pascal is awesome. I just feel like, because he's in so much stuff, that it runs the danger of folks growing tired of having him be in everything. Where I feel like there would be a higher appreciation if there was kind of a break there between one project to another. And I don't know, from the outside looking in, it's easy for me to say, because I'm not making tens of millions of dollars and going from one project to the next project. And I understand that idea, especially as an actor, to kind of strike while the iron's hot. If you're being given the opportunity to do all these films, why not do it? But I just feel like that's a double-edged sword, and that's the danger that you run into. So I don't know where you stand or how you feel about it.
Personally, I just, again, think that he is just, we'll see what they do with this movie. Like you pointed out, they're not at the best point in their careers for this kind of movie. It seems like it's just something they're doing. So we'll see. I think that,
I feel like
again,
it's a
we'll see.
safe movie, because
Yes, for sure.
this is a film that is consistently that does well at the box office, and with those that we have in that ensemble, a few of them actually need a hit right now. I mean, Jet Black, he had the Anaconda film, and I know the
Mhm.
Anaconda film didn't really strike that hot, I don't know if you saw, that rebooted one that he had with Paul Rudd. Like, I mean, it was okay,
I
but
mean,
I mean,
he had Super Mario Brothers, the movie. He was good
and
in
I
that.
mean, he
People
had
liked
that
it.
too. But I mean, I don't necessarily count Super Mario Brothers because it's more so the IP than it is, the star power that you have there. So, um, yeah, I'll just be interested to see, how this turns out. At least from what I've seen from the trailer, it it doesn't seem like, it seems like they have, as you said, kind of uh, churned as much as they can out of, like, if we're talking about like a tube of toothpaste, where I feel like they have if y'all know what I'm talking about, when y'all have to get that last bit of toothpaste out and you have to like
You gotta
crunch it and curl it, like,
smooth it
yeah,
down.
yeah, like they've rolled out as much, as much awesomeness, I feel like, out of their franchise as they've been able. Or maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they've just not cut the trailer in a way where it just seems like it's not particularly as entertaining as the prior entries have been. I could be, proven wrong, but at least as it stands from what I've seen, uh, I will wait for it. And at this point, it's not something that I will be hopping the theaters to see. But now, getting into the Thomas Crown Affair, I'm assuming you've seen the original and you've seen the 1999 one, or have you only seen the Pierce Brosnan, Rene Russo one?
I think I've only seen the Pierce Brosnan one. I might have seen the original, but I don't really remember it.
Okay.
Uh, but I'm excited for it. It looks like something that is right up Michael B. Jordan's alley. I think that he is such a good actor that I think that something like this is a real good star turn from him, especially after winning Best Actor Oscar.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's always interesting to see when we're talking about any actor or actress, if you will, or I would say anyone who has won an Oscar. It can include directors and screenwriters as well. It's always interesting to see how where how they place the trajectory of their careers after winning an award. Um, History has been kind of middling, where it's not necessarily a guarantee that whatever project that said person, that said artist that wins an Oscar, that they do next. Sometimes it turns out great, and there have been also instances where, like, they've picked pretty badly, and they in that next project kind of, tanks and falls. So I will be curious to see, what comes of this. There wasn't anything like particularly like it looks really slick. It looks cool, but it, it, I would say it's basically looks like what I would anticipate from a caper film like Thomas Crown Affair. It seems kind of by the numbers. It doesn't seem like there's something like particularly like eye grabbing in terms of an angle or a slant that they're going with this story. If anything, it provides an opportunity for people to revisit this franchise. If perhaps they weren't old enough, they weren't around. I mean, it's hard to believe, Spills, but 1999, we have some folks
That's
that were
27
born.
years ago.
That's what I'm
That
saying.
was
We have some
27
folks
years
that were
ago.
born in
Yeah.
1999. So, we kind of take that for granted. So, maybe this is a story that, they'll have an opportunity to be exposed to in this modern day and age, more so than us getting a unique take on it. So, I mean, I get that part of it too, for a new generation to be able to, enjoy that story. But as someone who has seen the original, the 1968 original, and then also saw the 1999 one in theaters, uh, I, I'm not really like blown away with what I've seen. As I said, or say, as you said, Michael B. Jordan is a terrific actor. I have no doubt that he'll kill it. I'm just talking about just the film overall, and that I'm not sure that there is something uniquely there to draw audiences that are already familiar with the story. And you can when you're doing a film like this where you're rebooting something, you understand that it is for a new set of eyes, right? Which, I feel like they'll be able to
Hmm.
capture by having Michael B. Jordan there. But for those audiences that know the story, are you going to be able to pull them if they're already familiar with the story? I'm not exactly sure. They may wait for this one because they're like, I already know the story. The only thing that you're switching here is you're switching up, Pierce Brosnan for Michael B. Jordan. And in the case of the 1968 original, I'm brain farting who you had there that hopped into that role then. It was Steve McQueen,
Hmm.
in the original. So you have actors that are in there like at the height of their powers, in terms of their stardom, um, hopping into that said role. So again, will be interesting, but at least from what I've seen with this teaser, I haven't been blown away by what they've shown. So, any last thoughts before we hop into our final story?
Just that Michael B. Jordan was great in that heist scene on Black Panther. So I imagine that they saw that and was like, yo, he could do this. I think he could do it. So we'll see. I think
Indeed,
he's a shoe in for Pimp of the Year.
indeed. So, um, now getting into our main topic story. As you can see here in the background, there was some news that went down in regards to the X-Men reboot that is going to be happening within the MCU. And this news happened on Friday. This was a story that was dropped by Deadline, and in that story, it was shared that Samara Weaving, who many of you know from the Hide and Seek franchise, um, would be taking on the role of the diamond-skinned telepath Emma Frost from the X-Men comics. But if you know your adaptations, when it comes to Emma Frost, she did pop up, of course, in X-Men First Class by actress January Jones. But considering who we have here, Spills, I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm assuming you've seen a Hide and Seek, the two films of that franchise. If not, is there another film that you are familiar with Miss Weaving's work in?
Um, I have not seen any of her work. I think that she looks like January Jones. I think this is interesting because Hollywood be swapping the 30-year-old blonde starlets out like nobody's business, and this is another sign of it. I don't know why they got everybody else from the previous Fox X-Men movies to reprise their roles, and they've got this new Emma Frost. But I don't make the decisions over there. Maybe January Jones said some mean things about the Marvel organization. There was talk about her not being that work withable during her time on X-Men First Class. So that's probably just it. They just didn't bring her back after First Class, and they're just looking in a new direction. But we talk about Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about Hollywood. So I'm interested in this casting. I think that as we move more into the MCU, I've been seeing a lot of people complaining about who are these characters. They seem like they've got a bunch of characters that they've got mismatched. But honestly, the characters that they're talking about in this new Doomsday movie are the most popular characters in the Marvel verse. I think that we are so used to seeing the B guys do great. It's almost like when your starters are out of the game and the bench guys start coming back on a lead, and then the starters get back in, and everybody's like, "Well, the lead got back by the bench guys." It's like, "Well, the starters are going to keep us there." So I think it's good that Marvel's finally putting the starters back in. I love to see Wolverine on the screen doing things. I love to see Spider Man doing things with them. and the Hulk, and they've got all these people in that movie allegedly, and movies moving forward. So I'm very interested in this. We'll see where this goes. I don't know. How do you feel about this casting?
Well, first, I know you were talking about the idea of the OG cast, if you will, and then this new cast that is on the way. And talking about the old cast, just to give some insight for those out there, because I know sometimes it can kind of become a thing where you're like, what are they doing here? What's going on here? So for those of you, out there, and Spills, you've been keeping track of this as well, is that, we had the multiverse that has been kind of a overarching theme with these current, slate of projects across our streaming and across some of the films, of having this idea of multiverses and alternate or variants of certain characters. And so they're continuing that same trend with what we have with these final two Avengers films, which are going to kind of close off what we have with this multiverse saga. So we have Doomsday, of course, that's coming this December, and then apparently it's going to be followed up by Avengers Secret Wars. But the reason being that we have, I'll say, OG X-Men cast, because it's not exactly apparently the cast from the 2000 films, but they are a variant of what we have with that X-Men universe that we've seen in the early 2000s. But with it being a multiverse, you still have the same actors in those said roles. But because we're dealing with the multiverse, it gives an opportunity for Marvel Studios to be able to bring back a lot of the OG characters from those early 2000 films to take on or portray those same characters that they had, even if they are variants of the characters that we know and love. So I guess you can kind of say it's kind of like a final farewell. Is this giving fans an opportunity to see the actors that they have known prior, in these said superhero roles, one final, opportunity to see them before we get a rebooted universe. Because, for those that, know their comics out there, when we're talking about Secret Wars, it gives an opportunity to, once that story arc is said and done, to do a clean slate, if you will, and to do a reboot of the entire universe. So because we'll have that reboot of the entire universe, from what I understand, currently we haven't had kind of a intermingling of various superhero factions. The X-Men, at least as it stands right now, have not been a part of the Avengers. The Fantastic Four for a while were not a part of the the Avengers universe. Now we're actually getting the Fantastic Four, or say we've gotten the Fantastic Four. Once they've done Secret Wars, they're going to legitly do what we have in the comics, where all of these factions of different characters and teams all reside in one universe. Because for such a long time, and this is more so with the business that's happened behind the scenes, there wasn't really an opportunity when this MCU first started to have all of them in the same universe. Because at that point, for those of you that know, Disney didn't have the rights to the X-Men for a while. This was back when 20th Century Fox was still doing the X-Men movies, and they had the rights to the X-Men, and Sony was still doing the only game in town that was doing the Spider-Man movies. But now they have a collaborative relationship where they are able to share that Spider-Man character. So now post Secret Wars, which is supposed to, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, supposed to follow after Avengers Doomsday, we will get the Marvel universe that a lot of folks originally hoped we would get, which is the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, all residing into one universe instead of being separate from each other, which would be cool to see. So with that, it means that some of our actors whether they are a part of the separate universes under different studios, or whether they've been a part of the MCU, they in some cases they may remain the same, but in other cases they may get rebooted, and that also goes to like logistical things of like the ages of some of the actors. Some of these actors we kind of take for granted have been playing some of these characters for 10, 15 years. They're ready to move on to something else. So as I said, there are going to be a couple that are going to stick around and continue to play those said characters, but understandably so, as actors creatively, some of them are ready to move on, and they're also getting up there in age to be able to do a lot of the stunts that are necessary to be able to accurately portray some of these characters. So, that also would mean that you're getting other actors to be able to step in to reboot those characters. So that, for those of you that are out there, that is what has been going on. And so it's interesting to kind of have this info drop on, as I said, dropped on Friday, because we have some more, without getting into spoilers, we have some connective tissue there of what's going on with mutants in that Spider-Man film. I'll let you guys check it out on your own, because I did check it out on opening day. We have some connective tissue there of what's going on with our mutants in the MCU. So it's very exciting stuff. I mean, we've already had the introduction. A lot of people take it for granted. We've already had an introduction of mutants, and that's because of Namor that we had in Black Panther in Wakanda Forever. A lot of people, forget that that Namor himself is a mutant. So we technically have already had an introduction of mutants. We also had it with Kamala in brain farting the
Marvels,
series.
but she's not a mutant.
Marvel.
Miss Marvel's not a mutant. She's an Inhuman.
In the comics, you are correct. She is an Inhuman, but they've
Oh, they
changed
made
it
her
for
a
this
They made her
MCU and made her a
for the
mutant.
MCU. They made her a mutant.
Yes, in the
Interesting.
MCU, you are correct. She is an Inhuman in the comics, but
Interesting.
in the MCU, they have changed her. They have adapted her to be a mutant now. So, and I think that's just maybe because they want to be able to have some connecting stories with her and other mutants, perhaps, so that way they have something to kind of relate to that connects them. But yes, I want to say they introduced her first as a mutant, and then after that, we had the Wakanda Forever movie, which had Namor, and now we will, of course, have Doomsday with our OG mutants, who are variants, but we will have our own MCU X-Men that will be soon on the way following Secret Wars, which will feature some characters that we have seen thus far, this weekend in a certain Marvel film, but also likely with Miss Weaving as well. I mean, she has a pedigree as well. Terrific scream queen. If you guys have not seen the Ready or Not franchise, those two films, they are awesome. But I mean, that blockbuster pedigree is in her blood, because for those of you that are not aware, she is the niece of Hugo Weaving, who many of you guys know as Mr. Smith from the Matrix films. So in terms of that pedigree, like, she has an incredible pedigree in terms of those acting chops. She's a terrific actress, and as I said, a terrific screen queen when it comes to horror films, as she has demonstrated in the Ready or Not franchise thus far. But in talking about the X-Men, I feel like I will briefly get into, because I feel like I can spend a whole show on that, and I don't want to dive too long into it. I can talk about it further as more stories come in. But there were other things that did go down at Comic-Con that act as connective tissue to what was going on. I'm sure many of you guys had heard that David Johnson, who many people know from The Longest Walk, as well as Alien Romulus, will be taking on the character of Black Panther. I think he's a terrific actor, and definitely has the chops to be able to pull off what you would need for that character. I feel like he has a presence about him to play a regal character, and to be able to accurately portray the accent that you would need to play Wakandan, in that said film. So, super excited about seeing what he does with that film. And a couple of things that we already know about that said installment about Black Panther 3 is that Denzel Washington is also going to be in that film. From what I hear, he's going to be the villain. So it's going to be crazy to see him play opposite of Johnson playing opposite of him. And also having who's our Black Panther now? Shuri playing opposite of whatever villain Denzel Washington plays. So super excited about that. Also, another caveat when we're talking about mutants as well. So, we have some more connective tissue here. I understand that Storm is going to be in Black Panther 3. I know right now they haven't really confirmed who will be playing that character, but it gives some more connective tissue, right, of another MCU franchise that's going to be connected to the X-Men franchise just by virtue of having one of its members on that said in that said film. So yeah, definitely some exciting things that are coming, down the pike when we're talking about X-Men and mutants and what they're doing with the MCU currently. So, Spills, I know I've just been rambling on, but your thoughts?
I wish that I was there live to see some of the Marvel shenanigans that you were able to
You can
witness. They
always
were
come, bro, but
crazy.
I know how it
They were,
is. You were busy.
I'm a busy man, ladies and
You were
gentlemen.
busy.
Your boy is always
Been
everywhere.
trying
Your
to get you
boy is
down
always
there.
everywhere. Yeah, you've been trying for
Not
years.
for lack of
But
trying.
yes, for sure. I would ask, would you say that this, as far as Marvel surprises at Comic Con, was one of the bigger ones that they've done? I think I would say it's up there with the first announcement of the Avengers movies. I think it's up there with
Oh
that one. I don't
no,
know.
no, no. I
No.
mean, no, look, I would say this. Don't get me wrong. Like this year was awesome. It was great to have the cosplay surprise with Ryan Reynolds of him being, in that denim like Deadpool outfit. That was really funny. That was really cool. And then also having what is it? The announcement of Ghost Rider and who we have, playing Ghost Rider. I didn't even get into that either. But if I was really being objective and honest, as fun as it was to do this year and the things that were announced for Marvel, I'm still going to have to give it to the announcement of the Avengers that first time. I want to say that was 2010 because I was
Hmm.
there when they brought them all on stage. And then also, I would also have to say, outside of the initial introduction of all the Avengers on stage, would be the those times where Kevin Feige has done announcements of slates of films. And the unfortunate thing, I think, and this is by virtue of what has happened recently with some of those projects not coming to fruition. I know there have been instances where they've announced a slate and they've managed to actually produce each of those said films. But recently, when they've done that, some of those films have not come to be, and so they're placed in a weird spot of uh, making all these announcements of these things that are coming, only to find out that they're not ever going to get made. And so I do miss those times where they've done slates like that, and where Feige has announced entire slates of, okay, this year, this is going to cover, this 2027, we're going to get this film, and this film, and then 2028, we're going to get this film, and this film. I don't think we're ever going to get that again, because right now, while they're trying to get back to controlling, the quantity of films versus the quality of the films, I think that it's still going to be kind of a fluid thing where there are some projects that they themselves know are in development, but I don't know if they're going to be as open. I don't know if Feige's going to be as open about announcing them as he once did, based off of what we've seen before. Because at one point we were supposed to get an Inhumans film, which never came to be. He's never going to hear the end of it, probably, about the Blade film that was supposed to be with Mahershala Ali that now will likely never get made. So yeah, that would be the thing that I would say 2010, and then when we're talking about the slate of films, I want to say that was 2019 that we had the slate of films that were announced, like TV shows and films. Those would be the years for me that were like outstanding. They were incredible. And like I said, this year was fun, especially considering that Marvel had bowed out last year. They, depending on how their slate goes, sometimes they take years off, which is very noticeable when you're coming to Comic-Con, because they normally take over the end of the Saturday slate that they have for panels in Hall H. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see if they do head out next year. They do have a couple of releases that are coming next year, and by that time they probably will be in the middle of production for some of the 2028 films that they have announced. So perhaps we'll end up seeing them again. There will be enough there for them to come again. But if not, this was a fun year, but I wouldn't call it like their greatest year or among their greatest years.
Yeah, I think that is interesting, but the next great one will be when I make my announcement at Comic-Con, and all the fans go crazy. I'm sure that everyone has been
patiently. Absolutely. We'll claim
they've
it,
been
man.
chomping at the bit for your boy to get to San Diego. That's right.
Just like I'm a manifest being in Hall H doing a panel. Y'all heard it here. I'm going to end up doing a panel at Hall H, and then we're going to look back on this video and say, remember back when I manifested saying that I was going to be on the Hall H stage talking about a Marvel film? So we will see for sure. But yeah, I'm manifesting it like you, Spills. I'm manifesting it out there like you. But that's going to do it for us here at This Week in Pop Culture. Want to thank Spills, as always, for co-hosting with me. Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at TrulySpill at Instagram.com. I'm there. You can find me. We can talk about different kind of train car trim options. I think, again, private train car, you could have a pool table. That seems like a cool thing you would do. All kinds of stuff. So check me out there. Back to you, Brandon.
Excellent. And you can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X, and then Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Other than that, let me see. We do have a couple of shows that are coming up in the near future. You have Ranger Boom that is happening this coming weekend, and then further down the line, we'll have Colorado Springs Comic-Con, which might have some stuff for, and going further, we'll have Rhode Island Comic-Con as well, which is always fun to attend. So. Have some interesting things, down the pike. If there are any other things, I'll be sure to announce them. And then, of course, we also have, for Spills, we have our House of the Dragon show that we need to give to. And I know we missed our last show, so I don't know, Spills, perhaps we can do a double header. We could do the episode that we missed, and then hit it into this week's episode. We'll see. We'll keep you guys posted. We'll announce it, but unless you already are caught up. But outside of that, we also have our X-Men show, which will be starting at the top of the hour, because we didn't have a chance to do it Friday and Saturday this week. So we're doing it today, following the show at the top of the hour at 3 o'clock. So 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock for those of you on the West Coast, talking episode 7 of X-Men 97. So that's going to do it for us here at This Week in Pop Culture for Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see y'all soon. Peace.